this episode, through the geodesy of the Ohum, we will circumnavigate the globe in our journey to understand how Great Circle navigation, or ley lines, were used in this ancient world grid, and how all these sacred sites are meridian points in an ancient global positioning system. Places where navigators would have made the accurate bearing change calculations needed to stay on course with a Great Circle path. And we will explore some of the reasons why the Great Pyramid of Giza marks the 360-degree prime meridian of longitude in the ancient global positioning system. We will begin this journey at the birthplace of Buddha, the sacred gardens of Lumbini, Nepal. This sacred gardens is a garden of stupas centered along a north-south axis canal. With a large cardinal compass geoglyph known as the Sacred Pond at the south end. From here we will center our bearings on the great circles that will connect us to the ancient sites of the world of Buddha and beyond. Our first line takes us to another site of very old stupas, the site of Sanchi, India. The possible Sanskrit root word is sanch, which means to measure. After crossing Sanchi, this line comes to the island of Omkar-eshwar. Many temples sit upon this island, which gets its name from Omkara, the deity of the Om sound. On Omkar-eshwar, our line finds the temple of Siddhanath. Our next great circle from the sacred pond leads to the sites of Ellora and Ajanta caves. Jain, Hindu, and Buddhist sites. Like Petra, we find these temples carved out of solid rock. Here, in the Ajanta caves, we find the famous giant recumbent Buddha statue. We arrive in Ellora with our lines centered on the temple of Chuta Kailasa, while Petra in Jordan has large temple faces carved out of the canyon wall for relatively small interiors. The Ellora and Ajunta caves have large, elaborate interiors carved out of the mountain. Like the sacred pond itself, this next great circle connects two other geometric earthworks. This great circle crosses the northeastern corner of the central square canal of Angkor, before crossing the temple complex of Taekeo, Angkor. From Angkor, Cambodia, this great circle goes beyond the ancient sphere of Buddha and around the surface of the earth to the North Island of New Zealand. Where we find the hilltop earthworks of Okura Tope Paul. Our next great circle follows the longitudinal meridian canal of the sacred gardens to the other side of the earth, to the temple pyramids of El Dain, Mexico, on the bearing of 0.83 degrees north. Since the cardinal axis of the sacred gardens is 1.1 degrees, give or take, east of true north, we will look toward the true north longitude for a great circle that today finds the pyramids of Monte Alban on the bearing of 0.06 degrees north. Aside from the equator, and all longitudinal lines, which are also great circles, but great circles with bearings that do not change. Every great circle has two vertices and two nodes. The nodes are the two places where the great circle crosses the equator, and the vertex is where the great circle comes closest to a pole. The vertex is where the great circle is true to the bearing of 90 degrees east and 270 west. So for our last great circle from the sacred pond, we will begin at the northern vertex of the great circle pointed out by its east-west axis. Since the axis of the sacred gardens is around 1.1 degrees off true north, we will set two great circles, one true to today's orientation of 90 degrees east and 270 degrees west, and our second we will set upon the bearing of 90.77 degrees east and 270.77 degrees west, to favor the east-west axis of the sacred pond. Following the rising sun of an equinox, we find that nearly all of the most well-known megalithic sites of the Pacific Ocean are oriented in the shortest distance to one another along this very great circle corridor. The first site we come to when crossing the open ocean is the ancient port city of Nan-Madol, Pompeii. Nan-Madol has more than 90 island structures and a large network of canals. Leaving Nan-Madol, our next stop along these orthodromes brings us to the neighboring island of Khosrei, where our first great circle with a true 90-degree east bearing passes just over 2 miles south of the ruins of Lilu. From Lilu we continue on into the center of the Pacific Ocean, coming to the mare of the Tahitian Islands. Our first great circle with the bearing of 90 degrees east brings us 6 miles north of the ancient port city of Tapu-Tapuete, while our second great circle of 90.77 degrees passes within 3 miles of the Mare Abati, as this line passes over the island of Maiaiti, and there are other mare that lay between these two great circles, like that of Titiroa on the island of More, and Rahu on the island of Tahiti. The orations from the people here speak of the Fatar Aroha, a truce between two alliances, an Eastern Alliance, Aoti, and a Western Alliance, Aori. Here at the center of the ocean, perhaps there is another reason behind this ancient truce, which speaks of an Eastern and Western hemisphere of cultural geography, where these islands are the closest landmass to the ancient date line, or the 180-degree longitudinal meridian, sitting directly opposite the Earth from Giza, the ancient prime meridian of 360 degrees longitude. One of the main answers given to the question of why the ancients chose Giza to be their prime meridian of 0 degrees longitude is that it sits at the center of the 30% of the Earth's surface above the current sea level. Perhaps the ancients had the technology to take into account the symmetry of the land beneath the surface of the ocean. Seen here with the satellite images of Google Earth, there are sub-oceanic ridges upon this ocean floor that stretch out for hundreds of miles like spokes of a wheel, with the Tahitian Islands at the center of this wheel. One of these ridges extends nearly a quarter of the Earth's surface south towards Antarctica. and it is in a longitudinal orientation. By today's reckoning of global positioning, this sub-oceanic ridge sits on the 149th parallel west of Greenwich. But this sub-oceanic longitudinal ridge and the island of Moray have been the 180-degree longitudinal meridian within historical recorded Earth measurements or map projections. In the 3rd century BCE, Eratosthenes placed the Prime Meridian of 0 degrees longitude upon Alexandria, Egypt. Opposite the Earth from Alexandria is the island of Moray and this sub-oceanic ridge. Eratosthenes was a geodesicist in the Library of Alexandria. It is from him that we get one of our earliest written records of a near-accurate measurement of the Earth's equatorial circumference. In the 2nd century ACE, Ptolemy placed the 0 degrees 360 degrees prime meridian in the Canary Islands. Ptolemy cataloged the latitude and longitude of over 8,000 sites from the source maps of the Library of Alexandria and the accurate datum sailors brought into port. It was thought by Western record that the ancient geodesy of Alexandria was lost with the burning of the library in 391 ACE, until in 1929 a 400-year-old book surfaced in the Topkapi Palace of Istanbul. It is called the Book of Navigation, and its author was a ship's captain in the Ottoman Empire named Haji Ahmed Muhiddin Peri. Piri Reis created many maps for the Book of Navigation. In this book he accredits that all of these maps were created by many more source maps, and that some of these source maps date back to the Library of Alexandria. As we journey to all these sacred sites around the world, we will visit the concept that they are all meridian points in an ancient global positioning system, a place to make Earth measurements. Many of these sites are documented as being solar and lunar observatories, so the navigator in from the sea or crossing the broad land could put down his astrolabe or his sextant or other device and make use of these sites as an astronomical surveying tool, a tool to calculate where they were upon the Earth's surface and to calculate the bearing or direction of the sites that lay beyond the horizon. Like the great circle we are on, marked out by the equinoctial pathway of the sacred pond in Nepal, upon the vertex of this great circle which leads us along yet another road to Rapa Nui. Easter Island is a place that the ley lines will lead to many times throughout the geodesy of the Ohum. Rapa Nui is known as the navel of the world. This world navel idea is perhaps an ancient term for a world meridian, a place where many sites throughout the world are oriented to one another in the shortest distance along great circles that converge like spokes of a wheel upon these centers of the world, or world meridians like Rapa Nui. Coming to Rapa Nui, we see that a true 90-degree to 70-degree bearing leads us 11 miles north of the island, while our second great circle, with the bearing of 90.77 and 270.77 degrees, passes within 1 mile north of the coast of Rapa Nui. We could adjust this great circle another 2 or 3/10 of a degree in order to connect with many of the sites on the north half of Rapa Nui. Adjusting to a bearing of 90.97 degrees or up to 91.07 degrees would still favor the equinoctial path of the sacred pond in Nepal. The last site the sacred pond takes us to in this episode is one that best represents what I mean when I say that these ancient sites are of the Ohum, or of the ancient grandmother culture. Our bearing of 90.77 degrees, 270.77 degrees takes us 1 mile north of the pre-Incan site of Pucara Tilcara in Argentina. Pucara is a hilltop citadel and pyramid with carbon dates of human habitation dating back over 10,000 years, the era of the Ohum. Humans like any other throughout time capable of understanding astronomy and geodetic computation. It is through ancient places like these that we will explore how the sites of human habitation have been aligned for much longer than the era that is given credit for the pyramid or monument which sits atop the site now. Places like Tiwanaku, Bolivia, Teotihuacan, Mexico, and Mound House, Illinois, to name a few. So grab your geomancer's compass and stay tuned to the geodesy of the Ohum for more on world meridians and the ancient global positioning system.